Bishop of New York, one of the lawmakers leading the charge on minimum wage. Sir, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me on.
First, let's talk about Senator Reid saying that this is the continuation of Republican obstruction here. Does that help solve the problem when you have words like that exchanged?
Well, I think it's an accurate reflection of what's going on in the Senate, and I think that it's important for people to understand that. In the House, I think the only chance we have of the legislation coming up for consideration is if this discharge petition that I filed this morning is successful. We need 218 members to sign that, and I'm confident we'll get every one of the Democrats to sign it. So we need at least, I would say, 18 to 20 Republicans to sign it so that we can bring that up. So it'll be interesting to see if we get any cooperation at all from the other side of the aisle.
Well, and what is your feel at this point? I mean, and not just in the House. I mean, I'm looking at some of the insight on what's happening, for example, in the Senate, to add to what's been discussed by Senator Reid. You do have some red state Democrats, as you well know, who also face some tough races and may not be fully on board with raising the minimum wage for their political survival.
Well, look, I think it's an issue that the American people support. A poll after poll after poll shows that upwards of 70% of the American people support an increase in the minimum wage. So I think that the policy is absolutely right, that we should hardworking people an opportunity to rise above the poverty level, and that's what an increase in the minimum wage will do. But at the same time, I think the politics are right in that, as I say, 70% of the American people show their support for this.
And speaking of some of the rhetoric around this issue, I want to play what Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal said just today on Morning Joe, where he yet again criticized the president as a so-called minimum wage president. Let's listen to what he said.
We don't need to be doing things to make it harder for people to go to work. And that's what when I talk about the president's minimum wage economy, it seems like he is comfortable pursuing policies that actually expand the number of people on government programs rather than good-paying private sector jobs. So my message to our legislators in D.C. or in Baton Rouge would be, let's stop trying to create minimum wage jobs. Let's create good-paying jobs. And there are things we can do if we will get government out of the way.
Congressman, your response to Governor Jindal?
Well, first off, he's factually incorrect. I mean, what the minimum increase in the minimum wage would do is it would take people and reduce their dependence on federal programs such as food stamps and programs of that type, because it would increase their wage, raise them out of the poverty level, and allow them to fend for themselves.
And just quickly here, that's exactly what the CBO report that so many Republicans point to as an argument against raising minimum wage. It also does cite that 900,000 workers would be lifted out of poverty.
Exactly, and that's something, and that as many as 27 million Americans would see an increase in their hourly wage, and over the course of the phase-in of this bill, they would realize an additional $35 billion in income, which they're going to turn right back into the economy, because these are workers that are working paycheck to paycheck, and they are going to spend that money on the everyday necessities of life. The other thing I would say to Governor Jindal is we would welcome efforts in this Congress to create good-paying middle-class jobs, and every effort that either the president or the Democrats have engaged in over the last several years has been thwarted by the Republicans. The president is announcing a $302 billion effort to expand our investment in surface transportation.
Right.
That's the kind of thing that we need to do to put people back to work in this country, and I'm willing to bet that that's going to get very little, if any, support from my Republican colleagues in the House, and that's unfortunate. That's precisely the kind of thing we need to do.
Congressman Bishop.